You ever realize the most dangerous part about being a kid is believing you can save everyone? When I was 12 years old, I snuck out of my house at midnight, wearing a homemade superhero mask. And I patrolled my neighborhood. Not for attention, not for fun, because I genuinely believed it was my responsibility to protect people. And the crazy part is, a lot of us never stopped feeling that way. We just kind of grew up. So, what happens to the kid who wanted to be a superhero? Hey guys, this is Thrive and Peak. After my spiritual awakening, I started listening to a lot of Mac Miller. Some of you guys might listen to him. He's from my home state. He's from Pennsylvania. He's really cool though. Like I didn't like him at first when he came out, but I checked him out a few years later and really connected with him in like the areas of like swimming and circles and some of his later work. And but there was one of his lines in his songs, Jet Fuels, where he says, I used to want to be a superhero, fly around in the Cape catching bad guys. And that's like the very first line that he says in Jet Fuel. And that line hit me though, because I also did. I used to make superhero masks out of these cheap silicone bookmarks from school. Me and my friends would cut eye holes in them, and they would look a little like luchador mask, kind of like Rey Mysterio, right? But mine was, I had a secret with mine, I guess. I don't know. Like I took mine home, and one weekend I just waited until it got really dark, and I snuck out. We had this bathroom on the second floor. If you locked it, you could slip out of the back onto the patio and go down the stairs outside, right? So that's what I did. I was maybe like 11 or 12, maybe 13, and I went outside and I patrolled my block like I was Gotham's protector. And I remember thinking, what would I do if someone actually saw me? And like, what would I do if something actually happened? I was terrified. But I wanted the thrill. Not because I wanted attention, because I wanted to help. Even back then, that part was real. And I think about that kid sometimes, right? Because I don't think I'm alone. I know I'm not. I think a lot of us wanted to be superheroes. And Mac let me know I wasn't alone. I thought that was like a solo experience. That was an individual experience. I thought that was individually me. If I got caught sneaking out, my mom would have been a supervillain, and I would have took that L, you know. Um, but here's the real question: what happens to those kids? What happens to those who don't grow out of it? The ones who don't just admire superheroes, but they feel called to be one, right? Where do they get that gene from? That instinct says, send me. I'll take the hit, right? I'll sacrifice. I'll carry it. Where does that come from? I think that came, for me personally, I can only speak for myself. I think that came from some sort of guilt or shame or something, or some sort of guilt that I realized of the weight that I brought as a child, especially for for parents that weren't necessarily fully prepared um, to have me. Um, I wouldn't change it any other way, but my mother is only 15 years older than me, and that's awesome. Like, but from an outside looking in, it looks like you're unprepared. It looks like you're struggling and stuff. But I'm very grateful because I got the chance to grow with my parents. Um, but yeah, where does that come from? Because some kids just don't grow up idolizing superheroes. Some kids internalize it. Some kids become the shield. Some kids think that they become the emotional sponge. Some kids decide at 11 years old it's my job to protect, even if no one asked them to, even if no one told them. For me, that fire didn't die. It evolved. I told myself I don't need to sneak around my block anymore. I'll graduate high school. I'm a Marine. I'll become a real life superhero, right? And I'll seek that validation because you can't tell me I didn't do it because I wear it as a title for the rest of my life. That's the type of validation that I needed even afterwards of growing up. Depending on who you ask, a real life villain, depending on like that's I ran towards that identity of hardness because it felt like purpose. It felt like validation. It felt like finally, this is who I am. But here's what nobody tells you: you can wear the uniform and still feel empty. You can answer that call, and you still feel like you didn't scratch that itch. I became a Marine. I deployed. I traveled. I trained. I various firearms, various everything, and I still didn't feel like a super. I felt tired. I felt lost. I felt like maybe I misunderstood the assignment, right? So what happens to that fire? Did it die? Does the world beat it out of you? Did responsibility replace it? Does trauma distort it? Does adulthood convince you that you're not a superhero, being superhero is childish? Or did we realize we're trying to save everyone else because nobody was saving us? That's the uncomfortable part. Because sometimes that superhero gene isn't about strength, it's about survival. Sometimes we try to protect everyone else so we don't have to feel about how unprotected we are, how unprotected we feel at the time. But here's what I realized. The kid who wanted to patrol the block at midnight, he wasn't crazy, he wasn't stupid, he wasn't naive. He was just pure. he was he was motivated. He was just doing he didn't know that the first person he needed to save was himself. And that was the shift. That's the thrive and peak shift. Being a superhero isn't about flying, it's not about capes, it's not about catching bad guys. It's about breaking cycles and healing wounds. It's about protecting your inner child. It's about saying, I won't abandon myself anymore. That's the hero work. That's real. Every superhero has an origin story. And most origin stories start the same way: pain, loss, humbling. My origin story is I was overdue for a humbling. And life delivered it. Instead of becoming bitter, instead of becoming the villain, I chose to become conscious. Now I don't control the blocks, I patrol my mind. I don't sneak out of windows, I sit with my shadows. I don't fight imaginary bad guys, I confront my real wounds. That's my cape now. That's my superpower. So I want to ask you guys, what happened to your kid who wanted to save everyone? What happened to the kid who wanted to save everyone? Where did that fire go? Did it die? Did it just need a new direction? And maybe, just maybe, you were never meant to save the world. Maybe you were just meant to save yourself first. This has been Thrive and Peak. For the kids who grew up wanting to be superheroes, you still are. Just in a different way. So keep on climbing. Thrive and Peak, baby.